did you get your degree in?
My undergrad is in respiratory therapy. My master's is in science education, and my specialist is integrated teaching through the arts.
What was your first job out of college?
Out of college, I worked as a respiratory therapist at a local hospital, and did that for 16 years.
Was that the only section of the hospital you worked in was the respiratory?
Yes,
Okay.
so as a respiratory therapist, we move around to the whole hospital.
Okay.
You know, one day I would be in the ER, and then I would be in the ICU, and then the intensive care nursery. So there's a lot of variety in that job, and I like that.
And what was your favorite part of the hospital that you worked in?
I really enjoyed working in the ER because it was always very different, very intense. You could see immediate results from your efforts. I enjoyed working in the units and in labor and delivery as well.
What made you want to change from being a respiratory therapist to a teacher?
Well, I had a lifestyle change, went through a divorce, and really did not want my kids to have to contend with the hospital schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Hospital schedules can be great. They're long, but you work a few days a week.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have kids that you're having to consider, I just didn't want them to have to contend with going to a babysitter by 6 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
and then having to stay through a 12-hour shift
Mm-hmm.
and me pick them up at 8 o'clock at night. I just felt like that was too stressful. So when I started, I had always thought about education, and this seemed like a really good fit. It didn't take me that long to transition from undergrad in respiratory therapy to a master's in education, and it gave me a great schedule, and I had the same schedule as my kids. So that was really the biggest motivation.
Okay, and what aspects could you take from being a respiratory therapist and working in the hospital to
So
teaching?
in respiratory therapy, in many cases, I was educating the patients about their disease and about their treatments and about their options.
Mhm.
So I felt like I was a very good communicator, and I had that experience. I had the science background from the classes that I took and working in a hospital. Most of my teaching career, I've taught anatomy, which is a perfect fit. All of the anatomy and physiology that I learned in college and in the hospital, I could teach to my students, and then at the same time give them very real-world experiences that I had in the hospital about this particular academic subject. So they can learn, why this matters, why this is important. So it was a good fit.
Which job did you like the best?
Well, I can tell you, when I worked in the hospital, the ability to move around and see lots of different types of patients, I really enjoyed the variety. I also really liked working with a team. As a teacher, it's very isolating. Even though we have other teachers that we collaborate with, during the school day, I'm really on my own with my students. So it is a little bit more isolated in the school. In the hospital, I saw a lot of immediate results from my efforts, and the patients were immediately grateful. In education, working with teenagers, sometimes they are not especially grateful, and at the time they don't really understand what they're receiving. I get a lot of emails from students after they've graduated, but while we're in the pipeline, they may not be as appreciative.
Yeah.
So that there is that difference there. But I really do enjoy what I do. You just have to wait a little bit longer for the
results.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And what advice do you have somebody that wants to go into the medical field?
Advice. Listen to your patients. Don't just look at the test results, because a lot of times it doesn't tell the whole story. And if you really are in tune with your patients, they will give you information that will help you figure out what's going on. You can figure out that they are going down sooner by listening to them than by looking at their test results. And that is really, a lot of your patients won't be able to verbalize what's happening. If you work with babies, they can't tell you what's happening. But if you really sort of get in tune with them, you can pick up on tiny, tiny little signals that let you know something's not right.
Okay.
And then adults who are very, very sick sometimes can't really even communicate with you. If they're on a ventilator, they can't speak to you. So you really have to just sort of watch their bodies and put everything all together. It is very difficult, you know, especially if you work with critical patients, to lose those patients. And so sometimes you really have to separate yourself from that, because the emotion can be very debilitating at times. But so just to be incredibly compassionate and to be in tune with your patients, that would be my advice.